Well, happy solstice, everybody. The day of the most light, which is auspicious. Donna asked me to talk about overcoming fear. And of course, none of us have that problem. As I sit up here, I remember the first time I was asked to speak in front of a group was probably sixth grade in high school, memorized the poem. And I had it memorized perfectly. We each picked out our own poem, and I could recite it to my mother at home perfectly. I knew it backward and forward. Then I got up in front of the class. I saw 25 of my classmates staring at me, and I completely forgot the poem. So I thought, what was that? That was fear, and what was the fear coming from? I had nothing to be afraid of. And I saw that fear was self-created, something I created myself. And not just from this lifetime, but from past lifetimes, and all of us are dealing with those emotions that are there, and it kind of, it's what they call in some esoteric literature, the dweller at the threshold, which is kind of like a false being that we've all made up of all of our fears and anger and all those human qualities that we're trying to overcome. And they kind of come to us like sort of like an entity that creates these emotions that are irrational. So that's sort of what we're all working on, dissolving. Other religions, they have different names like vrittis or whatever it is. These are all these energies that we've created over many lifetimes, and they come back to us in this lifetime to be dissolved. And of course, one of the best ways to dissolve that is with the violet consuming flame. And that was a great gift of Saint Germain. I mean, the violet flame has always existed. It's a quality of light. If you take a prism up, you'll see violet going through it. But the teachings of how to use the violet consuming flame were a gift of Saint Germain. So we give gratitude to him. The violet fire is the most purifying quality of light. So if you visualize yourself enfolded in violet flame or a tube of light around you, as in this picture, you see the violet, and that helps to dissolve all these negative energies. And it's something I use every day. And I use it not only on myself, but for the whole world. And Saint Germain asked me to write about Violet Tara. Now, this is a goddess whose function is to transmit violet light. And so I imagine her as Saint Germain's twin ray, as the feminine part of him, and that she is above the earth, sending rays of violet light down. And each of us can invoke her and, in fact, become one with her. That's the beauty. That's what the I Am teachings are about, really, is instead of praying to a God on the altar or up there somewhere or far away, God is within each of us, and not just the male God, but the female God, that it's all part of the same God consciousness, and we can invoke that. And I am the presence of God. Jesus said, the kingdom of heaven is within you. And that's what he meant. Each of us has contact with that God presence. And I think what Jesus really said is, I am the son of Father, Mother God, not God the Father, because God is the mother also. And in Vedic literature, there's many references to the mother aspect of God. In fact, there was a time when humanity was being decimated by some demon, and Brahma, Shiva, and Vishnu all got together, and they could not stop this demon. And they prayed to whoever they prayed to. And the goddess heard them, and she came forth and got rid of the demon. And of course, Brahma, Shiva, and Vishnu, they were all congratulated themselves that they'd been successful with their prayer. So she appeared to them and said, stop congratulating yourself. You had nothing to do with it. I am the Divine Mother that brought everything into creation. And as the Divine Mother, I can also dissolve what I don't like. And I am the one that freed you from this demon. And so they gave gratitude to her. So it's something to be aware of that, when you say I am, you're calling the Father, Mother, God into action. I like to think of it as, if you think of the cross, the I is the vertical component, and you meditate on I, it kind of takes you up into that pure consciousness. Then when you say am, it's from the heart, and it's the horizontal bar of the cross. And that's the Divine Mother that brings these divine thoughts into action. And each of us has both components within us. So when you say I am, that is Father, Mother, God in action. So you can say I am the presence dissolving and consuming all fear and doubt, not only within me, but in humanity. And I am the violet consuming flame in action, dissolving and consuming fear. And every day you feel a little bit freer, a little bit clearer. I don't know if any of you remember the episode used to be on TV, Kung Fu, with I think it was David Carradine. I used to watch it all the time. And there was a time when he was in a cave and he was fighting a demon. And the demon was winning, had him down on the ground. And the demon had its hands around his neck and looked like David Carradine was going to be finished. And then he remembered that when he'd been a child, he had a very high fever. And this was in China. He had a very high fever, and there'd been a water pitcher on a table beside the bed. And there was a demon on the, I don't know why, but in Tibetan Buddhism, they have these wrathful deities that look very terrifying. And there had been one of these wrathful beings on the water pitcher. And as he was lying there with a very high fever and in pain, he was looking at that demon, and he felt that his condition was caused by that demon. And even after he got better, somehow he internalized that demon, and that became the embodiment of fear for him. And he suddenly realized that this demon was that entity that had become even stronger during his life. So he said to the demon, now I know who you are. I created you. And by the power which I am, I now uncreate you. You have no power because I am your creator, and I choose now to dissolve you. And that being got weaker and weaker, and finally it just completely dissolved. And from then on, he was free of all fear and doubt. And I've remembered that many times, that these things that are frightening are really a product of our own fear. I mean, sometimes human fear serves a purpose. It's like when you're driving, pay attention while you're driving, that it's there to, or don't go into a dangerous neighborhood at night. You feel fear. That fear is telling you, warning you, that's not a good place to go. But when you're sitting alone and you feel fear, or you feel apprehensive about something you have to do, you can look at it and say, I am the presence of God dissolving and consuming that fear. And this picture of the I am presence it doesn't really do it justice. I've actually seen the presence. When I first came to Mount Shasta, I heard about it and I saw these pictures of it, but I thought, oh, that's some stoned artist did that, And well, Pearl told the story that when Godfrey Ray King, who really brought the I Am teachings of Saint Germain to the Western world, after he gave one of his talks, a woman from the audience came up and said to him, I saw this ball of rainbow light above your head. And he said, can you paint it? She said, yes, I'm a painter. I can paint it. And he said, please do that. And she did this picture that was made to camera. She included also, you can see a little bit of the Christ self. Actually, there are other bodies in there too. Like your etheric body would be in here, and then higher mental body, various other bodies. We don't need to name them all. But like when you go to sleep at night, you go out of your physical body, then you're in your etheric body, and you can have so-called dreams at that time. You can even go into higher bodies, and you're actually existing and carrying on separate lives in all those other bodies as well, you know. So, one night that being appeared to me. I guess I was supposed to know this is not just an artist's dream or fancy, that this was real. And I had been awakened 3 nights in a row by somebody talking to me, telling me about past lives and things like that. And so the next night, before I went to sleep, I thought this was some new master that I was not acquainted with. And I said, I want to know who you are. Please reveal yourself to me. Then I went to sleep, and in the middle of the night, I was awakened, and a ball of light like that, but it's super intense. I mean, like I couldn't see the ceiling. There was just this being. And I said, who are you? And it said, I am you. I am your own God presence. And I'd been sitting up. This was not a dream. I was wide awake, kind of passed out at that point, and woke up in the morning, and I thought maybe there would be a hole burned in the ceiling or something, but it wasn't. So I've had faith in that presence ever since, and it knows everything you're doing. People say you have to pray extra hard to God. God is like very far away. No, that's not true. God knows your every thought, feeling, and action and responds accordingly. So you can ask God to help you get rid of fear and to give you faith and love and things like that. And as we send that out into the world, each of us as a Christ being, that dissolves the fear and the doubt in us and our own desire for love. All of us, I think, would like more love. And when you send that love out to the world, to other people, even to people you don't really like, it brings that love through to you and, helps you just feel more love in general. The word fear is actually the letters FEAR, which that's false evidence appearing real. And that's true. We see something and we think it's real. We see people fighting different places around the world. It doesn't have to be our reality. We can send love to all those people and realize that the reason they're fighting is from their fear of lack, their feeling unloved. People who feel love don't wage war. So if we could send the violet flame to those people, dissolve their fear of lack, their fear of whatever it is they're afraid of, their fear that someone's trying to control them, so they're trying to control everybody else. If they would feel that love, there would not be any war. So I am the presence dissolving and consuming all fear on the planet, replacing it with love. Love, wisdom, and the power of God. By the power of God, which I am, I send that love forth. I can feel it right here in the room. And I know all those people watching online can feel it too. The interesting thing is people tell me they watched a video I did 5 years ago where I talked about love, and they still feel the love. Now, where is that coming from? Is that stored somewhere in an etheric plane? Maybe it's stored in the Akashic record, or it's something they are invoking themselves. You can tune into that and invoke it. It doesn't matter if it's 50 years later. We could tune into the lifetime of Jesus, and that love that he gave forth is still there. We can absorb that. Jesus and Mary Magdalene and all those beings, We can also invoke the goddesses of faith, hope, and charity. These are actual goddesses, and their job is to transmit certain quality. I used to be a pilot. I had a small plane, and I'd fly all around the country and up into Canada. And one day I was flying around and I looked at the chart and there was a small town called Hope and it had a tiny runway. And something told me to land there. And boy, when I landed, I felt that this was a focal point of the goddess of hope. I think there was a small mountain there. And I've felt her ever since then. You know, I am hope, beloved goddess of hope. I love you. I want to have more of your quality. And charity was the word they used to use. It doesn't just mean giving things away. It means divine love, actually, or compassion, or what the Buddhists call bodhicitta. And then faith is not just wanting to believe, but knowing that God is real. And we can all be free of fear and doubt and lack, you know, just feeling that inner abundance. And you can meditate on this presence being one with you, and especially the meditation Saint Germain gives, where you just feel a ball of light in the center of your chest. You could not take a breath. Your heart would stop beating without God. That's how you know God is real. You know, doctors can take you apart. They can't find what's making your heart beat. Well, it's that God presence within you. So Saint Germain says, just imagine there's a sun there, and there's no such thing really as a body looks solid, but actually it's 99% empty space. And the 1% that's not empty space is just energy and frequency and thought and form. So when you visualize the light, it's going out through every part of your being. Yeah, the question is, can we use the violet flame to dissolve karma, negative karma? And yes, the answer is yes, but we still need to learn the lesson. If there's generally, when I think of karma, I think of a karmic lesson. It's something we haven't learned yet. And we keep coming back lifetime after lifetime to get that lesson. But using the violet flame can speed that lesson up. You know, it can dissolve the negative energy around that. Each of us can ask, what do I still need to learn before my ascension or before I leave this body? And, you know, I don't want to get up there and have a replay of my life. In fact, there's a great movie with Meryl Streep called Defending Your Life. After death, they review your life and there's like a trial and you have to defend why you did certain things, you know, why you hurt certain people. And you don't want to get up there and find that there's harm that you caused to people and that you want to come back to help those people out because you feel bad about what you did. So we should all ask ourselves, what do I need to clear? What lesson do I need to learn? But using the violet flame helps to dissolve the charge on it. So if you have fear, instead of fear up around 90%, you can drop it to 75% and then 20% and 10%, you know, so there's, in the course of your life, you can dissolve that energy. The violet flame does definitely help to dissolve karma.
So when your mom came to you after she had passed at some point in time and asked you to forgive something,
yes,
and you communicated you had forgiven that, and but it was, I guess, another level of forgiveness you had to find for her to be able to move on.
Yes, well, see, that's a good question. So when my mother died, I said, mentally, I said, I forgive you for all the harm. You know, I mean, it wasn't like a lot of harm, but there were things that were very hard for me. You know, like she gave away my dog, which I was my best friend and everything. And my whole life, that wound was there, you know. And so I said, mentally, I forgive you. But I didn't realize inside the wound was still there. And 20 years after she died, she came to me and said, you're still holding on to things. And Saint Germain said, I cannot go to a higher level until you process those things. So for the next few months, I looked at all those things and I realized that she was the way she was because of things her mother did to her. And her mother, great grandmother, had done to her and passed it on. And so that wound was like a family wound. It kept getting repeated, you know? So that removed the blame from her, realizing she was just, wounding me in the way her mother had wounded her and so on. So then that dissolved, that finally dissolved that energy, and there were a number of things I had to work on. And finally, after a few months, she, came to me and she had gone to a higher level. And she said, "Thank you. That's made it possible for me to ascend, actually." So here, during her lifetime, she did not believe in God. She believed in nature, Mother Nature, and the elementals, the fairies, and all that. But she didn't believe that there was anybody up there, watching out for her. And it's amazing. But she was a very good person. She led a good life. She was honest. She did her best, that somebody like that could, after she died physically, 20 years later, actually ascend. She had cleared her, I think, her raising me, I put her through such stuff that it speeded up her ascension process, You had a question.
Yeah, the question is, so if the Divine Mother was able to dissolve the demon, and I believe that is true. And I believe so many millions and millions of people pray for peace and alleviation of suffering. Why is there still suffering?
Yeah, well, there may be the 0.1% of us that are praying for that, but there's the other 99 and 9/10 that are doing the other thing, like the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi that brought TM to the US. He said if we could get 1% of the world all praying for peace at the same time, that would be enough to do it. Well, actually, there is a change happening where, I mean, people call it many different things, going to the fifth dimension or fifth density, or in the Bible, there will be a new heaven and a new earth. People call this many different things, or the 1,000 years of peace, the golden age. Those people that are living in peace and praying for peace will move into that age. And the people that still are selfish and greedy and angry, they will stay in the 3D reality and have to go through whatever their lessons are. If we could get enough people praying and living in peace, that energy could go out and completely dissolve that war energy or war entity, I call it, And Maharishi did an experiment where he sent some meditators to Washington, D.C., I think in 2 different hotels. There were a lot of them, and they looked at what the crime rate was in the city. And the month when people were meditating, the crime rate dropped significantly. And they did this experiment twice, and it happened both times. I think they had maybe 80 people meditating.
Every day, or
I don't remember, or no, it was 8 hours. Every day they would stay in a hotel, and, most of the day they'd be meditating. And the crime rate in Washington, D.C. dropped significantly. And they did this on 2 different occasions just to prove it wasn't a fluke, So, that would be great if in every country around the world we could get people doing this. I mean, every day I focus on many world leaders and send them love and so on like that.
The Divine Mother in her own power and presence would be able to, like she did the one demon after the 3 other beings were not. I mean,
we can ask her. Yeah. Divine Mother, we ask you to bring peace on earth now.
Amen.
Yes.
I feel that some people, like you were just saying, some people won't go there toward the golden age and some people will. So it's going to split into parts, and then some people go one way, some go the other way.
It looks that way, that, if you have a bunch of kids, sometimes there's a couple troublemakers that want to fight, and sometimes you just need to let them step outside. And I think that must carry over to the world situation. These guys running things will show you, you can't do that to us. We'll fire some rockets over your way, it's just terrible. So we call for the Divine Mother to come forth. Don't these leaders have wives or girlfriends that could say, look, I'm not sleeping with you anymore unless you declare world peace, That happened in Greece at some time. There was some war that was stopped because the women got angry and said, I'm not going to bed with you anymore unless you wise up, Yeah, it's a balance. It's not like suddenly the patriarchal will end and then we'll have a matriarchy. It's got to be the balance of both of them where we're all in touch with the divine mother, father, God within us, but understanding what those qualities are is very important, part of that balance, I mean, I was aware at some point that I needed to work more on the mother quality. And I got a tanka, which is like a big portrait of White Tara, and I hung that on the wall at the foot of my bed. So every morning, every night, I would see that. And I did the mantra for White Tara, and I, realized what her qualities were. And I imagined merging with White Tara, which is, that's a tantric practice that they teach in Tibetan Buddhism, but it's in other religions too. They just call it something else. Like you can visualize Mother Mary and imagine yourself, your heart and her heart are merging, and becoming one. And women can do that with a male figure, like visualize yourself merging with Jesus. In fact, a lot of nuns, when they become a nun, they're married to Jesus, and he's the one. So they're absorbing that divine masculine quality. Yes.
Can you speak to the role of intensity in prayer or decrease?
Well, that's a good point. Intensity, how, some people feel you need to do it over a prayer over and over and practically shout. Well, there's this story that the Ballards, who gave the I Am teachings under the direction of Saint Germain in the 1930s, they had a son whose name was Donald, and they were raising him to be the next teacher and kind of the young man who would take over when they left. And they had a prayer breakfast, and they were doing all these decrees real loud. And he got up and started to leave, and they said, where are you going? And he said, you're all a bunch of parrots. He said, you just need to connect with God, say it once, know that it's done, and then let it go. And I found that to be true. And I found if I did it once with love and with feeling, that's all I needed to do. And the important thing was to let go of it. See, not hold on this mental idea, say it with love. I am God in action with love in this situation, bring about the divine plan. Thank you, and then let it go. God is all powerful. It's the God presence that does it, not the human emotion. When that human emotion is in, it gets us kind of riled up or fired up. You have to trust that God is a powerful being. And when you have that connection, dear God, I love you. Please bring peace on earth. May everyone be free of fear and doubt forever and filled with love.